And welcome back into another brand new episode of Tribal Council Chat here on the flagship show of the Reality Realm Network. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller,
And my name's Brett Parnell.
and let's dive in. So, episode 7, Survivor 47. What are your overall thoughts on the episode before we get into like player of the week and stuff like that?
Overall thoughts on the episode. I've got some. I'm sure we'll get into more details in the as we go through. There was some things that I loved about this episode. Other parts weren't great in its actual execution, but I don't blame the way some people are online saying like, "Oh, there's too many twists." And we'll get into this, but I don't necessarily think say the safety without power in this episode was a bad twist. I think the root cause of that problem might be the concept that we're right away splitting into two groups right after the merge. If why are we even doing that at all?
Which we've been doing. We've been splitting into new groups
We have.
at Jeff's merge for a while. That's not new.
No, it's
What's
not.
new is that only one group basically goes to tribal. Usually everyone goes, everyone votes, and only half of the people are options.
And I love that because, and we'll get into more details, but I felt like in this one, we're not dwindling our cast down too fast. And two, it almost brought me back to a situation kind of like the hourglass twist, but where the people who had immunity weren't voting.
Yeah.
And that if that happened, I didn't mind it. I hated two things about that twist, and I think here they kind of resolved them. I hated the fact that you were so-called not made the merge, yet you were voting in one tribe. That makes no entire sense. And I hate the fact that people went off on an island and just changed the results of a challenge
Yeah.
because last time I checked, if you win a competition, you won the competition. You can't be going in saying it's rigged and I want to change the results, and that didn't happen.
Well, the whole like Pope saying you didn't make the merge but voting together as one tribe still happened last week. This
Yeah,
week everyone had already made the merge.
but at least there wasn't six people with individual immunity all voting after another tribe.
Yeah.
I like the idea that the people who were won immunity in this episode that they weren't part of the tribal council other than the advantage, which one player got.
Yeah, I loved the advantage in the moment. Then it sent my winner pick home. So I was low key kind of salty about it. I'm like, well, now I kind of wish this stupid thing hadn't come into play. But Rachel's on my fantasy tribe also. So I thought there was a legitimate chance you were going to lose Gabe. I thought that was going to happen. Maybe that was just a red herring. Maybe nobody was actually considering that and they were all just acting like
Yeah,
he would bring it up, but I believed it.
who knows?
Kyle was that was a 4-1 vote though. I thought her and Kyle would stick together.
Yeah.
So
So
he
there must have been more that we didn't see, but we'll get to that.
yeah.
So let's get into it, at least with how we start. Bruce, player of the episode.
Hmm. I gotta go with Saul.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
He and I don't know if Rachel was someone on his radar or someone he was wanting to work with, but he was able to kind of swing power in the game and he chose to send her. I don't know who else he would have sent it to, but he chose to send her the advantage.
I get the
He had
sense,
some interest in her being in the game, and he was able to keep her around. And he had a really good episode. Did great damage control with Andy at the beginning of the episode that we're about to get into. So,
yeah, I get the sense that no matter who within that group of six that won the challenge got the reward, they were going to send it to Rachel simply because she's the odd person out. and it'll weaken the broader group of five from
Yeah.
Lavu. But I also get the sense that I don't know if this is Saul's view, if this is Genevieve's view, if this is Teeny's view, maybe all three of them, but that they probably know somewhere that even though Rachel is still in the game and part of the tribe, that she's on the bottom after the Annika vote. And that Andy is in a better position, but not too far behind. That it's really Sam and Sierra that are running that tribe.
Yeah. Well, we thought it.
And kind of
We
like
had.
we talked about last week with Kyle. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're delayed, so that's why that happened. What were you saying about
Oh,
Kyle?
I was saying, like last week, what we talked about with Kyle, and you and I talked about it a few weeks ago. If from what they've picked up on a journey, that people on other tribes were asking, Sam and Sierra a couple? And the answer is no to that. Even if other tribes are speculating that, what it does mean is that they know that they're in power.
Yeah, and we thought you and I talked about this. We thought we had an alliance of three here with Sam, Sierra, and Andy, but apparently that's not a thing. As Andy finds out that he was their decoy,
Yeah.
so we'll see what happens with Gata. They're kind of a mess, I guess, other than those two being tight.
I'm going to say at this point, and this is just my prediction, and I'm kind of talking about other things because I have not much more to add to Player of the Week. I'm right there with you with Saul as my pick as well. But um, I'm going to say at this point that we're about to hit a season where which tribe players we're on is about to mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I could see that.
And unlike a lot of seasons, I think that this cast is going, especially after what happened with Rachel being able to leave tribal council, this cast is going to now play all over the place.
Yeah. Also, shout
If
out to Jeremy Collins. I can't hear or see safety without power and not think of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
This isn't the first time that this advantage has come up since Winners at War, I don't think, but it's still he who comes to my mind every time I hear that phrase.
Yes. Though there's only one big if that I have in my mind here, and that's that we've seen Blue have to now take out one of their own. They smartly voted unanimously to do so, so there's not going to be necessarily divisions there. But the one big if that I have is, will said tribal lines fall apart right away, or will it take a little while? Because it would not surprise me at all if the other two tribes just decide to gang up on them, seeing that there's a situation where it would look like it would be 3 against 3 if you look from a tribal perspective, or sorry, 4 against 3 if you look from a tribal perspective. But Genevieve seems to know that Andy is potentially a player that could make a move, and Saul clearly has some confidence in Rachel in the same spot.
Yeah. And so,
So if I'm sitting there looking at, and I guess we didn't really prepare this, but maybe it's something we'll do next week when we're now finally into the middle of the game and the latter half. But if I was looking at, say, doing a full power ranking, I would be putting Kyle, Gabe, Sue, and Caroline, all four of them on the bottom at this point.
yeah, to answer your question earlier, which was, are the tribal lines going to start to bleed quickly or slowly? I think it's already happening between
Yeah.
red and yellow. You see Andy and Saul kind of starting an alliance,
Yep.
and you've seen Genevieve for like a minute in the market for a new number one after losing Rome
Yep.
and immediately be off the market because she's adopting Andy and taking on Andy duty now. So,
And that's where, like, I kind of thought of before. Andy, I don't know if he's going to be in a spot to win this game. I don't know if unless at least so far. I mean, we saw something like Scott make a great speech about how Michelle played the best in the last 3 episodes, and that's why she won. Um, Anyone could still do that. We're not in the last 3 episodes. I don't know if Andy could win with how sloppy he's been as a player so far, but I think he has a great chance to be sitting in the final three, maybe as the zero vote
Yeah.
finalist of this season.
Honestly, though, I think you need to play well. And Michelle did this. I'm not saying she didn't, but I think you need to play well than more than just 3 episodes to win.
Yeah,
So
true.
even like if you say, oh, if Andy comes on and starts playing really strong those last few episodes, I don't think that's enough. I think he needs to kind of get it together now and become more self-aware. And I, there's plenty of time. Anyone left in the game is still fully capable of winning, but I think someone like Andy, who's been very up and down, has to get it together now rather than just the last couple episodes if he comes on strong at the end.
Yeah. So let's get into the episode. Right after Tribal, we see an interesting situation where Rome is now gone, and we see Saul and Genevieve have a conversation late at night.
Yeah, this is interesting.
And I think that this is a situation that can still prove that, yes, Genevieve, I think, is in a great spot. I think she's a very good player, one of the better ones on this cast. And just because she was allied with Rome doesn't mean that she necessarily doesn't want to work with his opponents, and she voted for Rome in the first place too. She used Rome to get as far as she needed to in the game, and at this point, at the last episode, knew he was going and didn't really need him anymore.
Yeah, uh, Genevieve's playing really well so far. I like the way she's playing this. She knew Rome wasn't a long-term path to the end. He ticked off too many people in his original tribe. Then as soon as he's around new people, he ticks them off also. But she could have sent him home earlier. She used him perfectly to get herself far, and it looks like I think she's questioning it because he's kind of sporadic, but she might have found her next ally with Andy to help get her even farther. And is that to the end? Maybe, maybe not. I could see
Yeah,
Genevieve doing the same thing with Andy and get her through 3 or 4 episodes till it's not beneficial and then move on to someone else and just kind of play this game where you don't have one number one the whole game. You move from person to person until they stop being beneficial.
yeah, I
You
could see that too.
cut them and you get a new number one.
Absolutely. So in the morning, the probably most notable thing here is we start to see, I guess, what I would almost call Pavuti talk, but normally that's detrimental. We hear at least some rumors of a potential new Black Widow brigade.
Yeah, it's, and I don't know why this is the case, but we haven't seen a solid all girls alliance really work since Micronesia in season 16. That's the only one. We saw
Yeah,
a glimpse of it with the Witches' Coven in Cambodia, but that didn't last very long.
yeah, exactly.
Kelly made it to fourth, but Abby and Sierra and Cass were all early post merge boots. So, like, I don't know. I love the flashbacks. I thought the girls thing was gonna stick, but one of the driving forces in that conversation goes home. So I'm guessing not.
And we'll see though too as we get into next week because I'm about to get into the challenge. But one thing that happens in this episode that I don't think the players quite expected. I think they might have thought it might have came when there was 10 of them left in the game, not 12 of them left in the game. But one thing that happens here is that once we do get these split, um, tribes within the merged tribe competing in an immunity challenge that really any alliance talk that's happened between the time that they said all go live on one beach and now goes straight out the door.
Yeah, for sure. And
Because who you don't know who you're going to be voting with and who's in this season going to win immunity, or in past seasons who's going to be voting out somebody completely different. And we've just seen that episode frankly go wrong so many times, notably in 42 when Tori went home.
yeah, I do think Kyle is one. If Kyle wins individual immunity again next week, then he's gonna get the thing Joe had in Cambodia of we need to take him out the first time he doesn't win immunity.
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
they said that, and then Joe didn't win immunity, and he somehow didn't get sent home. So
But yeah, that's definitely coming in Kyle's direction. Um, I'll be totally honest. I think if Kyle's going to win the game, he pretty much has to Mike Holloway this at this point.
his social game hasn't been terrible, and I love Mike
No,
Holloway. But the one knock on him that I have is, yeah, his immunity run was impressive, but he put himself in a position where he had to do that to win.
yeah,
He would have gone home if he didn't win immunity at any of those times.
right.
So yeah, we'll see. I don't think he's the favorite by any means, but Kyle has a shot. Like we said, everyone. I would say the least likely to win at this point right now is probably Andy,
Yeah,
but I might put Kyle second on that list.
yeah.
Not that
Oh,
Kyle's been bad socially or strategically. There's just a lot better.
true. All right, so we get into the challenge and we see that they're doing the balancing a ball on the end of a long rim pole. And this is a bit different, though, compared to the split tribes before, which we've kind of already mentioned. But essentially, the players are going to be put into two teams of six. They'll compete in the challenge, but the winning tribe will win immunity. Now, this is the winning tribe is determined by whichever castaway lasts the longest in the challenge, not by combined scores.
Yeah.
So you're only as good or as bad as your absolute strongest player. That made it really interesting.
Which 45 did this also with the hanging on a pole challenge.
Yeah,
Hanging
45 this season and 45 seem to be doing quite a few similar things as we see in the preview.
Did last season do this like double team challenge also?
They did a team challenge like this. I don't remember if it was this challenge or not.
Well, no, I just meant the whole like two teams,
Yeah,
two
every new era season's done it.
Okay. So, yeah, you're right. But this was an interesting challenge for sure. And the reward is ribs, potato salad, corn on the cob, and beer and soda. So,
And one other thing sitting in a basket of flowers or something, which is probably the most important part of this reward.
yeah, I was reading when I was writing it down as he was saying it before the challenge.
Fair.
I didn't have that down here, but Kyle once again wins individual immunity, and he lasts the longest, I think. So the entire yellow team has it.
Yep, that is correct. Well,
And
Kyle doesn't last the longest because he has immunity for the blue team.
oh, that's right.
The entire yellow team lasts the longest, which I think was Teeny and Genevieve at this point.
Yeah. So Kyle gets
Sam went out just before.
Kyle gets individual immunity. The yellow team wins team immunity.
Yep.
Which in the first 6 seasons of the new era meant they would go to tribal and vote, but not be vulnerable. Now it means they basically don't go to tribal. They just kind of sit and watch.
They observe tribal like we've seen with individual immunities at the tribal phase, like in old school Survivor.
Yeah, like heroes versus villains comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Maybe Guatemala also there was some sort of tribal. No, Guatemala did the like one player
Yeah.
goes from the other
Guatemala and
tribe
Vanuatu both did that.
and give. They need to bring that back. That
That
would
would be fun.
so yeah. So for those of you that haven't seen those seasons, I'm gonna get sidetracked because this was so cool. Tribal phase of the game. One player from the tribe that it isn't going to tribal goes, watches tribal, and right before the players vote, awards immunity to one player and then leaves. Adds a lot. Check those episodes out. But Kyle wins immunity again. Yellow team wins reward and has immunity, which is Genevieve, Teeny, Sierra, Andy, Saul, and Sam. This is an interesting group here.
Yeah, it is. And you have a split between both tribes at this point, with the exception of Rachel. It's 3-3.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's where I think that, like I was adding in, that seeing that Rachel was able to stay, I could see both of these tribes just becoming one alliance for the next couple weeks at least.
Yeah, I could see that.
Almost like Beauty and Brawn tribe in Korong, just knocking the Brain tribe out.
I could see that. There's a couple pairs, like mostly like Andy, Saul. Well, I guess Andy's part of both of those. So Andy with Saul and Andy with Genevieve. I could see either of those pairs lasting longer than just the two tribes bullying, picking off the third tribe. I think there's potential for a couple different pairs there that could last even deeper than that.
Yeah, very true.
So,
All right, so we've mentioned the challenge, the winning team, which is Genevieve, Teeny, Saul, and Andy, Sierra, and Sam. I'm like my winner pick. What's his name? um, go back. We mentioned the reward, and then this I find interesting because Sierra is relaxing, but is wearing her hat that is mesh on the back, and she can therefore tell that Andy is just digging through everything and asked him if he found anything. That was great.
yeah,
So on brand for Andy at this point.
that's just kind of the two of their. That's the storyline with the two of them. Is the three
Yeah,
of them looked like an alliance for a little while, and I think that's because Sam wanted them to be. I
yeah.
don't think Sierra was ever real happy about that. So, and we didn't see
But at this
anything
point,
from
she's kind of stuck with it because even if Sierra's not that happy about it, Annika's not there. So
enough
numbers
other
wise,
people are
she needs
though.
him.
There's enough other people. What's interesting is we saw Andy find out they used him as a decoy, but and we saw Andy feel hurt, but we didn't see Sam talking about Andy. We saw Andy talking about Sam and Sierra. We saw Sierra talking about Andy. I don't think we saw anything from Sam on this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. We did not.
And I'm curious his thoughts because from what I remember, he was not thrilled with the idea of using Andy as a decoy.
No. But then moving on from there, while we see Andy getting caught looking for something, Saul plays this perfectly and nobody notices that he's looking for something.
He's
And
so brilliant.
he is. And Saul earns the ability to send an advantage to one of the players who has to vote that night, where they can either have safety without power, which is what happens, or I forget what the other advantage was, but it was totally irrelevant in this situation because Rachel didn't need to worry about one vote. She needed to worry about 5 votes.
Yeah, for sure.
And Saul at least contemplates in a confessional, is he going to try to build an alliance with somebody new, or is he going to give it to Rachel, who clearly needs it? But I don't know about you. I don't think he was ever thinking of doing anything other than giving it to Rachel.
No, I don't know that any of them would have. Like, who else would you give it to?
Exactly. It's probably just he wanted to, the second he got it, leave his options open, while also knowing that if I just come out and tell the camera I'm giving it to Rachel, it's going to destroy the episode.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, if you're a player, even if you're there to play a game, you're not there to worry about the show for say, you still know if you're a Survivor fan that you want that moment where Rachel pulls the advantage out of her bag, not one where we already know what's in there.
Yeah, but nobody was surprised by that either. I really don't think it makes that big of a difference at this point.
Yeah. All
So,
right. So go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Let's go over to the other beach.
Yeah,
And at this point, I'm not really sure what's going to happen because Rachel is the easy vote. But this tribe, as we've seen the other time that they decide that they had to vote on Luvu, they don't make things easy.
no, they don't.
And they are all talking to Rachel about potentially trying to get rid of Gabe, potentially trying to get rid of, who else was it?
Tiana.
Tiana, yeah. And you're starting to wonder even before you know about for sure that Rachel has the advantage. And I don't know if any of this means anything. They could have put it, assuming she didn't have that advantage, just all voted her off and it was all for show and worrying about what if she had an idol or what if she plays shot in the dark or something like that.
Yeah,
But despite all of that, you're sitting there going, is Rachel about to go from being on the bottom to being the swing vote?
yeah. One thing
Because
is,
if they are Kyle and Tiana versus Caroline and Sue, Rachel could have had a lot of power in this vote had she been there.
yeah, here's what's interesting because we see Tiana bring the Gabe plan to Caroline. And Caroline's like, I would be on board with if it were anyone else, but because the extra person is Rachel, that frightens me. And in a confessional, she's like, let me find it. She's using phrases like wanting to do what's best for Tiana and I. Like, when did this become a thing? I thought her and Sue didn't like or trust Tiana. Am I
Yeah,
like, I don't know. They presented this episode presented Tuku as like this tight five, and we need to vote one of our own out so they don't know how tight we are. That's never been the case. This five is a, to me, it seemed like a group of three and a group of two since the moment TK got voted out.
exactly. That's what I've always thought as well.
But like
But
production presented this to us as like they're this tight group of five that needs to hide how tight they are. No, they're not. What are you
exactly.
talking about? We've watched the episodes. They're not that tight. They're a three and a two.
And who knows from there because they all seem to be the tribe that I would almost think is maybe the least strategic other than Rome and the most likely to make big moves just for the purpose of making big moves.
Yeah. The interesting thing to me also, other than Caroline saying what's best for Tiana and I, Gabe uses Caroline as the decoy to try to prevent Rachel's shot in the dark.
Yep.
when you've said you don't trust Tiana, you've said you wanted to vote her out before the merge. Why is Caroline, your ally, the person you're using as a decoy? I don't get that.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
And if when I'm
I'm
curious if she
my
knew
my
about that or
guess
not.
is my guess is that there's a lot that we don't know about this tribe just because we only really saw them talk strategy during the TK vote, and I guess a little bit of strategy during the why is Sue bleeding all over the place.
Yeah,
Other than that, we didn't really get anything from them. But if they've lived on this beach for 11 days before the merge, you have to think that there's a lot of cut footage that tells us how they're playing the game.
yeah. I'm just curious if Caroline knew that she was the decoy or not.
Yeah,
Because if she didn't and she found out, maybe Gabe goes home.
that is very true.
Because I don't know. Maybe this was just great acting. I thought she was genuinely listening and considering the Gabe plan when Tiana was pitching it.
Yeah, I could see that. I thought so as well. I guess I maybe didn't really pick up on much because I thought that the chance of anything that isn't Rachel was like absolute zero the whole time I was watching it. I played in my mind of either Rachel has an advantage or Rachel goes home.
Yeah,
And if
me too.
and even when I was even if Rachel's advantage wasn't safety without power, even if it was shot in the dark, my perspective on this was it would have been the exact same because Rachel, if she got safe on shot in the dark, would have had 0 votes. There would have been no votes cast, and all hell would have broken loose in tribal.
Yeah. And see, they probably still would have stuck together, but even if they, like, these conversations are still happening, they're still thinking this through. But
Exactly.
I'm curious how Tiana ends up going home, other than just Gabe at Tribal saying the three of us need to stick together here, which there has to have been more of it than
There
him.
has to have been.
But that's the only hint we got that she would go home. And then she went home. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Anything else you want to go into before we get into our first live tribal of the season?
Um, Pretty much Saul, as he put it, going on his Oscar winning performance to go off and read the advantage by himself.
Yeah, that was
My
good.
jaw, I literally wrote my jaw is on the floor when because we saw all this strategizing before we found out what the advantage was.
Yeah,
But when it's send it to someone on the losing team, recipient has a choice between a block a vote or
block
safety
of
without power.
both. I was thinking.
My jaw was on the floor. I think even like I was watching it alone really late at night, like out loud. I'm like, oh wow, that's huge. And I like this. I don't know
Yeah,
if we've
uh,
seen quite this concept before, but I like it.
I liked it too, and I remember the exact words that I said when Saul read that vote, and that was production finally figured out how to make safety without power work.
Well, it would have worked in 40 if Jeremy would have just somehow gotten Sarah to speak first. When
True.
they stood up to say at the same time twice, then they both sat down like if you're not using it, I'm not. Then they both stood up again and Jeremy decided to speak first. Worked for him. He was going home that tribal, but I'm curious what happens if Sarah somehow breaks and speaks first. We'll never
Yeah,
know. But
yeah, we'll never know.
this also
But
this
it's been one that they've tried to get played so often, and it just never really functioned.
has it been that often?
The few times that they've done it,
Fair enough.
but it was always kind of it left people. What I'm trying to say is it left people in the fan community and even amongst the players saying, "Does this advantage function?"
Yeah. Well, I think this time between the tribal structure and the send an advantage thing, people were saying that I think we're getting again the complaint of production interferes too much or let the players
Yeah,
play,
and we'll talk about that at the end.
which is just this is the new era. It's very similar, but it's also a very different game.
I mean,
Like,
you know what? We're going into it. Let's just talk about it now. And
yeah,
I'm gonna get into that right now with saying this. I see people's point. I do like the idea of what fans are saying about let the players play, but I don't think that this is what I would call production interference because we don't know how the teams are going to get drawn in the challenge. This could have literally happened to anyone. It just so happened to be that there was one person who had none of the original tribe mates in tribal council with them. But that's such a small chance that that's even going to happen in the first place. Um, in my mind, if we are going to let the players play and say that we want to cut down on that kind of stuff, then the solution is very simple. We can let them play by not doing these things after the merge where we're saying half the tribe has individual immunity, plus Kyle has individual immunity, plus anyone with idols or advantages, whatever they may be. You could have even had a situation where, and I'm surprised that she didn't, but I thought Sue was going to play individual immunity too.
yeah. I wasn't really surprised she didn't. I don't think she was ever in danger,
I
but
don't think she was in danger, but especially after what happened to Suri, if I watch somebody play an advantage like that, that I'm confident is going home, I'm playing it if I'm in that game right away.
fair enough.
Because at least at that point, you're going, hey, the idol is going back in the jungle somewhere. And I know I don't need to worry about what could go wrong when when this tribal is about to erupt the second that Rachel is out of sight.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say is this, and we get these production interference, overbearing complaints every new era season because for some reason people still aren't used to the fact that the new era games just simply has more twists and turns. There's only been two times I've agreed with it. It's the production created fake idols I thought were ridiculous. I didn't like that.
Yep.
And the thing in 40, and they've only done this once. The thing in 44, where I guess they're both from 44, where you have to force the advantage is you get to force someone to vote a certain way.
Yeah.
Other than those two, I really don't think it's been a ton of production interference or getting in the way of players playing their game. This is just the new era game. This is how it works. Get used to it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Those two were bad though.
Yeah. All right. So when we do get into tribal, we see kind of good segue. We see Rachel leave, and then there's just talking pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, what this is wild. And I do find interesting the last conversation we see before they vote is Caroline and Kyle, who we've seen have like one conversation ever, if that.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that that was the final conversation before they voted.
And I
But
almost wonder if maybe that's how this ends up being a unanimous vote. Maybe Caroline just simply says, Gabe, Sue, and I are making the decision. So either you're going to make it obvious to all these people that you're on your own, or you're going to vote with us.
I think I still would have. Here's the thing, though. If you make it look like they're a four, you're still in trouble. They're not a four. They're a three and a one. If you vote for Gabe along with Tiana, we just talked about tribal lines blurring. That shows anyone on red or yellow looking for allies, like an Andy that doesn't know if he can trust his allies anymore. That, hey, I'm available. these
Yeah,
people don't want me with them. If you vote for Gabe anyway there, then that kind of says, hey, I'm available. I can be a number. Bring me into the fold.
true.
Whereas here, he's just kind of falling in line and people are telling him what to do. If that's what this conversation was, we don't know if that was the Kyle.
Yeah,
But
we
if
have
that's what
no
it
idea.
was, I don't know that I agree with you that I just vote how they do so it looks good. Because that doesn't help him any, I don't think. They're still not, they still don't love the idea of working with him. It's just
It
what they
doesn't
tried.
it doesn't help him. I'm not sure if Kyle's the type of player who would see that,
No.
but that's neither here nor there because we're not knowing what he's thinking about because he hasn't told us,
Yeah.
at least yet. I'm sure all of these players are going to have more to say as they get back to camp next week.
Yeah, for sure. So,
And with that, we see Tiana go home. I think that was pretty predictable at this point.
I still thought Gabe was going home until he started reading the votes.
Hmm, that long? Wow. So I guess since I haven't thought of that, what was your thoughts behind that, and why did you think Gabe was going home?
Well, all of the strategizing we saw was either Tiana goes home, not Tiana, either we vote Rachel home, or it's Rachel talking to Kyle and like, yes, this game plan makes sense. Vote out one of our own so they don't see how tight we all are. They're not that tight. Just want to point that out again. I don't know what production's doing. They gave us no inkling of Tiana until Tribal, and it's like Gabe saying it, but we had seen Caroline talking with Tiana earlier of, oh, your plan makes sense. I get it. I want to, even in a confessional saying, want to do what's best for Tiana and I. And then we see Caroline talking to Tiana and to Kyle. So my thinking was she kind of just nodded and went along with Gabe and Sue and was ready to make a move because we know how tight Tiana and Kyle are.
Yeah,
So when that last conversation was Caroline and Kyle, I still thought, okay, they're cementing this. Gabe's gone. They've been building up to this the whole episode. Then
makes
they
sense.
send someone out who we really never saw that plan form or how that came together, other than just they talked about it on their old tribe a couple episodes ago.
True.
So that's why I was surprised by the vote and that Gabe did not go home.
Yeah, I see that. So I guess let's just move in right before we get into power rankings. Um, the preview. We see that next week we're getting the Survivor auction back. I don't know about you. I'm hoping that it's some sort of thing where there's actual bids this time,
Yeah,
but and that they learn maybe that's why we didn't have a 46 auction and we're getting a 47 auction was
yeah.
that production realized, oh, we tried this. We didn't predict that everybody was just going to spend 500, 500, 500. Maybe we need to rework this a bit, see if we can have a twist or have an advantage in the auction that's not so blatantly obvious, but that is
No,
not not something that I mean, let's put it this way. You can do any twist you want in the auction. As if it's hidden, it'll work fine. But we've had enough of losing votes in all of these seasons.
I don't want any advantages in the auction because when we started putting idols and advantage in it is what broke it and why we didn't get it for 50
Yeah,
seasons. Leave it as just food, and we don't need to put this whoever has the most money at the end, whatever that was. That can
yeah.
have it
Because
be
that's the
just
thing is
food.
every single round, people would just bid
Yeah.
all their money.
Get rid of the new rule and make it just food. Just use the same auction rules, but don't
That
put idols and advantages in it. That's
fair.
all they need to do. If
Yeah,
people save their money, who cares? It's still a really fun, entertaining segment.
yeah, I would agree. And even if they do put some sort of advantage in it, hide it, don't enunciate it.
Yeah, I would just
And
prefer they
I
don't
would
at all.
I I would rather them take it out too. But like, and not only don't enunciate it, but don't make it like a covered item where people in future seasons can see an item. Put like, I don't know, a scroll inside of something.
Yeah, in the middle of a burrito.
Yeah,
But or they could do the pull-out thing and just have every item be covered for some reason,
yeah,
which was kind of crazy. But
that was. All right, so moving on, we did player of the week. Let's for one more week do our top and bottom power rankings, and then since we didn't really discuss this, and next week we'll start our full power rankings for the second half of the game.
okay, my bottom is Kyle because who's he working with? Who's his
Yep,
number one?
you're right there with you.
That
That's
that's cool.
exactly
Who he
it.
can work with.
His number one is out. I don't think he really has an option even at this point to work with anybody because he's a huge physical threat. And even if he was to try to go over to another tribe or to find new people, would anybody want to keep Kyle in the game for one more day longer than they have to, knowing he might Mike Holloway this whole game? If in order to like, oh, get rid of Sue or Caroline because they have more power in the game, you can take them either one out whenever you want.
Yeah, I think Andy. I think Andy might be a good match for who to work with. Like who would
Yeah,
want to work with Kyle?
I could see that, but I think Andy is going to have many better options for him, whether it be to stick with Seven Sierra, whether it be to go with Genevieve and Saul.
Yeah, you need more than 3 or 4 people at this point still, though. They could use Kyle as a number at least.
Yeah. So we're in agreement with Kyle in the bottom. Now I am going to say, who is your top?
Hmm.
And
I'm
I'm
gonna
thinking
say
about this as you say it too.
I'm gonna say Caroline just because she's like she's in a good spot within Tuku, but also we've seen her talking to people from the other tribes and getting along with them also. So I think she's in a good spot any either way. And she's just a very smart player and even keeled and very thinks things through very well in a way that is practical and makes sense.
Interesting. I'm like I said, gonna go with another name here. I'm trying to think who I think it's gonna be. At least this point, who's gonna be the safest? I'm not gonna say anyone from that tribe of four that's left. I think they're all in danger of going home. I'm gonna say the safest for next week is Teeny.
Nice.
I think they're in a position where I don't think Teeny has any enemies in this game. I don't think neither Genevieve nor Saul have any incentive to try to blindside them. I don't think anybody on the other tribes do either. So
No.
I don't necessarily think Teeny's going to win this game. I think they're in a great position to go very far in this game.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on from there, let's get into a line blindside first boot. Um, do you have a list of three?
You go first.
All right. So I'll give everyone the theme if you didn't catch on. Last week I did Eliza, Angelina, and Andrew Savage. These are three players who have a strong interest in the Kamala Harris campaign for president. So today you're getting three names of people who are on the complete opposite side and strongly supporting Donald Trump for president. So your options are Laura Moret, A name I've talked about quite a bit today, Mike Holloway and Anna Kate, of course.
Interesting. I just want to go on record as, unlike my co-host, who is a political science major, I believe, I can't stand politics. I hate election years. I hate the commercials. I hate the yard signs, all of it. It's an unpleasant experience for me. With
Uh,
that being said, really clever theme. I did not pick up on it at all until he told me it over text after we recorded last week. But I just want this whole thing to be over already.
well, by the time we record next week's podcast, wait, even by the time we watch Survivor next week, it will be finished.
Thank you. You're at least like up there. You probably don't get all the commercials and
Oh,
everything.
yes, we do, because I have, even being in Ontario, I get Detroit and Buffalo NFL games.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's so negative. It's so much mudslinging. It's awful.
So
But
we have a lot of US TV stations that come in through Canadian cable just to
yeah,
get American news, American sports, American entertainment.
I'm
I
gonna
mean, as you see through accidental matching today,
yeah, for
can't
the record, guys, I have worn this shirt that Brett got me to record twice now. I've worn it more than that. I just only worn it twice to record. Both times he wore it also.
yeah,
It was not planned either time. We just
no.
logged on and they're like, oh, okay.
But what I was getting at with that is that coming in 2 weeks, just kind of a overlap of cultures, even being up here. There's going to be 6 sold out Eras Tour shows in Toronto and another 3 in Vancouver in the next month.
Nice.
So the differences between living in Canada and getting influences from the States is very strong.
Yeah.
A lot stronger than you guys know anything about us.
So well, yeah, that doesn't take much. Um, I'm going to blindside Mike as much as I love him. I can't go to the end with him. He's a winner. The reason I'm not first boot, well, I was gonna say the reason I wasn't first booting him was because he's so good and he's a challenge beast. He'll help my. I still subscribe to the old theory that's becoming less and less majority of stay away from tribal pre-merge, and
Yeah.
he'll help us win challenge. But Laura Moret is also an incredible challenge beast, underrated in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think I will first boot Mike. They're both challenge
Okay.
beasts. He's a winner. That's the tiebreaker. I'll blindside her at the merge, so she like I don't know. That's my gut feeling. And I'll align with Anna. Uh, she's smart. She was a really smart player. We didn't see a ton from her, but and honestly, she's probably my least favorite of these three players because I really love the other two. But she's the one I feel like I win if I go to the end with. I think I lose against the other two.
Interesting. I'm going to align with Mike. Yes, he's the winner, but I think that was such unique circumstances that of what he was able to do in his season. I don't think he played a great social game to be able to win at the end. He happened to be on a winning a season full of unpopular characters when he got to the end and just did something that Mike did what Ozzy couldn't do, what Joe couldn't do, what Malcolm couldn't do, and that earned him the win. I don't think it's a win that happens if he goes to the end again. I'm gonna blindside Anna. I think Anna is, and this might be a very controversial opinion in the Survivor community, but I think Anna is the best pre-merge boot of all time in terms of actual game ability,
Yeah,
and
that's a
could
pretty hot take. I don't know how many people would agree with that. It's worth considering, though.
I I don't think a lot of people would consider it, but I think there's a whole boatload of reasons, i.e., the theme of this Ally Blindside First Boot, why people don't consider that.
Yeah, fair enough.
She's just too controversial. But in gameplay, I think she could have gone very deep in that game up until the point that Anna, Michelle, and Julia get split three ways. All three of them are in a great spot to win.
Yeah.
And thankfully, Michelle's the one who ends up pulling that off. So I'm gonna blindside Anna Hugh. I think she could be a useful ally. I don't really want to take her to the end and Hugh speak at least at that point. She might speak with something a lot more off topic at final, like the way she speaks now than what she would have done when she was younger, but who knows?
Yeah.
And that leads me to first boot Laura, who I agree with you is a very underrated player and someone who, frankly, probably wins that game if Russell goes home.
Not only underrated player, but underrated challenge beast also.
Yeah.
We talk about challenge beast players. She never comes up in the conversations with the Aussies or the Joes or the Jonathans. And I feel like you
Uh,
look at her
even
on Redemption Island her second season. She belongs
even
in the conversation.
even amongst women players, she never comes up in the topic of like Jenna Maraska or Lindsay Delashowitz or Kelly Wigglesworth or um
Kim.
yeah, Kim. That's the name I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Either way, great episode. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I have three.
Oh, you have three. Perfect. Totally forgot that you didn't go.
No, you're good. So I'm just gonna go with kind of three random players that don't get talked about a ton that we didn't see a ton of. So you're probably not gonna have a ton to go off of here, but that's
That's okay.
the fun. And that's, I mean, you and I are just self-proclaimed, but I think of us both as kind of experts, so you'll have something for sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
You have from Survivor Philippines, from the Red Tribe, Calabao, Katie Hansen. You have, let's go with Token Chain's first boot, Michelle Chase, not Token Chain's, Gabon first
Gabon.
boot, Michelle Chase. And you've got, sorry, I have to pull something up real quick. You've got, oh, what's his name? Eric from Edge of Extinction on the Yellow Tribe, comma.
Eric from Edge of Extinction, comma. I'm trying to think who Eric is. Just give me 2 seconds.
That hence the theme, making you think a little bit. You know who the other two are, though.
Yeah. Okay, I know who Eric is.
Yeah,
I had his face in my mind and I'm like, is that Eric or is that somebody with a different name? No, I know who he is.
I forgot about Eric till I rewatched that season.
Once I saw a picture. All right, so I am going to first throw this out there. This might be a bizarre pick. I don't know. I'm going to align with Michelle Chase.
I pretty much
And
knew that would happen when I picked her, honestly.
I think that she is one of the better first boots of all time.
Yeah,
She was excellent at that first challenge that just beat everybody down in Gabon. And then she just got sick. And players who get sick on Survivor, unfortunately, just tend to be the next to go because the worst thing that can happen is spreading of some sort of viral infection to your entire tribe and needing to be medically treated. But it's so hard to recover from an infection in those kind of conditions that you're just going to drag the tribe down for a long time. But I don't think that takes away from how she would play if she was to play again.
yeah,
That leads me to blindside Eric. He was actually one. It's funny now that at first I said who's Eric, and then once I saw his face, I'm like that guy. That was his first name. He was one of the players that I was cheering for that season. Him and Victoria.
yeah,
So, I would have liked to see him go further. He's someone I think I could have a lot in common with. Um, and then go on from there to the end of the game. That leads me to first boot Katie, only because I guess I just thought of where would I put the other two and found those spots right away. Nothing against Katie. She seemed to be a decent player, but there's only one spot left.
yeah, for sure. I I think we saw the most from Eric, and Eric seems like a pretty solid player, so I think I'm the most scared of him. I'll first boot him. I don't know. See, I think Michelle showed a lot of potential, but we saw one episode of her. We saw a lot more from Katie,
Yeah.
but I think the ceiling is probably higher with Michelle, but the median is probably higher with Katie. So just for the sake of being different, I'm gonna align with Katie and
Okay.
alongside Michelle Chase, but I'd feel good working with either one.
Nice.
And with that being said, we have a big announcement thanks to Reality Realm contributor, my co-host at Pit Stop House, Kevin Oliver. Shout out to him. The Reality Realm Network now has a merch store over on Redbubble. So be watching out for all our different socials. We'll be posting the link to that. It's super cool. And order some merch. There's all sorts of different stuff you can get with any of our show's logos or the network logo on it.
Yeah, that'll be really neat. Thanks to Kevin for setting it up.
Yeah, so speaking of the network, speaking of other shows, you want to tell them a little bit about what you're doing on your other show?
Yeah, New Generation Challenge podcast. We're really getting into the final phase of the game. Everything's heating up, so that's really interesting. We've got a bit of a almost war going on over there. I don't want to spoil it to anyone, but a former long-term friendship seems to have broken up with two massive names in the game of the challenge, building their own alliances and going to war.
Huh, interesting.
So it's going to be a really fun finish for the Survivor fans. If you're like me as a big Michelle fan, she's still in the game. She's a big threat to win. Players like this week, amazing confessional, a challenge legend, Rachel Robinson, says, I don't want to go into an elimination against Michelle because TJ might put a puzzle in there.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Love that Rachel's still in there though.
yep. She's doing great too.
And she hasn't been on the main show in forever either.
For literally ever, like since the island or something.
And over on Pit Stop Pals, it's our usual shenanigans. We're rewatching Amazing Race 7. Come join the shenanigans with us. And with that being said, everyone, grab your torches and head back to camp. Bye, everyone.
Have a good night.